This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate everybody showing up, and hopefully we'll have some good conversation, and everybody will learn a little bit about reports. I know this is where I commonly have learned things in the past. Just writing down who all is here. Kate, Lori, Terry, and got Janice already, Tony Miller. Okay. Tony, if you can put in the chat what library you're from. I don't know that we have met.
Poplar
Um,
Bluff, I think.
oh, great.
I think
That's great.
he took over for Josh. I think he might actually be on this committee.
If he is, that's news to me.
I know. I heard that from
I've,
Josh, and I didn't know that.
I've been in touch with Josh and asked about who he was going to nominate to take his place, and we had a couple of back and forths about it, but I never
Oh, okay.
got Tony's name, so I am not going to turn Tony away. I certainly hope. Let's see, I took over for Josh. This is the first time I've been able to be here. Okay, great. Welcome, Tony. That's excellent. Glad to have you. So we always start these meetings with questions and concerns. Does anybody have anything pressing, especially those of you who maybe are here for the first time? Any questions that you have for your libraries? What brings you here? Is there something specific you want to find out from the committee? And if not, that's okay. This is also where commonly we bring up things that are not otherwise on the agenda. I did want to mention this has been discussed kind of tangentially in a couple of different places. Shannon and I were part of a meeting, gosh, it's been probably 6 weeks ago now, with Equinox about, or maybe longer, because they were in the middle of a grant process. Where they had applied for a grant. They had some plans for how to improve the reports module, basically completely revamping the interface and adding what they were calling a dashboard. So at a glance, you could see current statistics for a variety of things. They had some charts and graphs and things like that in it. So it was kind of a nice, again, kind of an at-a-glance way of looking at your library statistics, something that would be really handy for an administrative team to have at their fingertips if they wanted to kind of keep an eye on things, but weren't necessarily needing reports or something more formal. I did also ask about when we were doing that demo, if we could share the mock-ups that they showed us of what this interface would look like and what their plans were and things like that. Since it's work that they're trying to get a contract to do, they didn't want to share it. They didn't want to give us copies, but they are happy to do a demo. We are trying to get something scheduled with the board so that the board can see what their plans are and whether or not the board would want to support it with the newly created development fund that now that we have a development fund policy, we will maybe have some money to put toward projects like that.
Yeah, I know the board was pretty excited about seeing it. I mean, everybody said they'd at least be interested in seeing it.
Right. And it's, I thought it looked like a big improvement. It is pretty pricey. I mean, both, if you take the reporter side of it and the dashboard part of the project as two separate projects, which is what they were proposing, they're each in the neighborhood of about $40,000. Now, that being said, they also said that the amount of work necessary was only about 90 days. So it seemed like they could get this work done pretty quickly. We were trying to work out kind of the timeline of how that would work into like an Evergreen update year and or upgrade year for Missouri Evergreen, when we would actually see the benefit of that development. And if we don't see that benefit within a grant period, could that be used? Could grant money be used for that because we're not technically seeing any benefit from it? So that part is a little bit unclear, but again, if we're putting money toward development and there are other partners from other consortia that they seem to be optimistic that they're going to get. Equinox has been talking to some other people. If they can contribute and we can contribute a little bit, we may not need to apply for a grant to get that. They had applied for a $100,000 grant. They didn't say who the funder was, and it was not awarded. So we were really hoping that they would just come back and say, we got the grant and we're going to work on it, and it's going to go out to the greater community, and Missouri Evergreen doesn't have to actually fund this. But that didn't happen.
So I like what you're saying about the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Are they making the building of reports less convoluted? So
Yes.
so will we not have to understand the whole trees and all the, or the tables in the back and all that stuff?
Right. So I think those who are interested in that kind of knowledge, I think there is going to be still a benefit from that kind of experience if you have it, or interest if you want to learn that sort of thing. It will still benefit you. But the way they showed it, it's kind of a tabbed interface. So you go through steps to create reports, and with each step, you're kind of narrowing and filtering things down into the data that you actually want. So you would choose your what we now use as data sources. So the different tables in the database and things like that. It wouldn't be called that, and there wouldn't be thousands and thousands of them, because the old reporter is going to still exist in the background. If you want to do something that's really in depth, that's in some obscure table, you can still do that, but you're going to have some of that same knowledge. But for circulation and patron reports and cash reports, the really common stuff that everybody does, collection reports, things like that, those are going to be in like a drop-down menu. And it's like, okay, do you want a circ, a collection, a patron, a money, what kind of report do you want?
Nice.
And then from there, based on what you choose, there's another drop-down that has some fields that you can choose, and you can choose more than one. So, you want first name, last name, you want title and author normalized, you want, those kinds of things depending on what your source is. But it's much more of a, I'm going to walk you through, now choose this, and then at the end, it's going to ask you, okay, is there a time frame? Is there, that kind of thing. So it's much more user friendly, at least the way they're proposing it. And I have to say, I've talked to a couple of people outside of committee meetings and board meetings and things like that. The thing I keep saying is it's surprising to me that with them proposing such a short time frame of development, 90 days, and this idea, and to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive. It's kind of surprising to me that this hasn't already been fixed. Yep. Because reports is always like the number one thing that people are frustrated with. So why has this not already been done? But it's open source and people have different priorities. And I suppose if something is a deal breaker or something that is a critical failure, that that's always going to take precedence over something that, well, it'd be nice if this was easier to use. We're going to fix things that are critical bugs first. And maybe that's where everybody's focus has been. I don't know.
Well, I know they haven't started it yet, but they've done enough groundwork to where they can have a demo. Do you know who the project manager is?
It's not a demo, like you can't get in there and use it. They demonstrate They demonstrate it with mock-ups.
Okay.
So it's like we've created an image of what this tab interface will look like once we've created it. This is what we want it to look like, but we haven't started development.
Do you happen to know who is heading that up at Equinox?
Andrea, what is her last name?
Bunce Newman.
Yes, that's her.
Okay.
And yeah, that's who is running that, and she would probably be the one who would lead a demo for Missouri Evergreen, if anyone was. And she had been in touch, like I said, with Shannon and I as funding has kind of fallen through, and then we thought we might have funding because we didn't have 2 migrations left, or our two remaining migrations were not filled yet. So we thought we might be able to repurpose that money. So anyway, we've been talking about that a little bit, and as more libraries came on, then obviously that wasn't a possibility. So it just kind of went away. Other than, you know, we're still interested. Hopefully we'll be able to contribute something, but we can't foot the entire bill. So anyway, I think that's a great thing for us to be working toward. I think that's going to really help the vast majority of our members. You know, other consortia may do things differently. I know in other consortia they have staff that maybe create templates or even run reports for their member libraries. But for us, we're all doing this ourselves, I think that's going to be a huge benefit.
One more question from me. So if
Absolutely.
it's in 2 parts, can we have one without the other? Can they develop one and it's pretty useful? Okay.
Yes, we asked that question because we were a little concerned that, you know, one might have to precede the other.
Right.
They might be dependent upon one another, and they said no. We can pick and choose. What I'm honestly a little worried about, because after we saw the demo, Shannon was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this dashboard," and I was like, "No, we have to do reports. We have to do reports. We have to do reports."
Yeah.
Now, if you can get the same data from the dashboard that most of our members would want from a reporter, then maybe you kind of get that same benefit. But man, we've got to do something with reports.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm hoping that, you know, since the vast majority of the folks that are going to be doing these kinds of statistical reports are going to be directors or administrators, that they don't get enamored with the dashboard and decide to go that direction first. Instead, I really hope that we can do something with the reporter and
don't just look at the pretties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, think of your staff time. That's gonna be really beneficial for you. So anyway, let's see. Okay, so that's our off-topic or off-agenda discussion. First and unfinished business is training materials. The update that I'll give you guys is that the same one that I provided this morning. I did another video on, this one was on recurring reports, setting up and running recurring reports. This was something that we had planned on doing already, but I really wanted to do after the last Evergreen reports interest group because they showed us something that I was not familiar with, and I'm actually going to share my screen real quick to show you guys what this looks like. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so they showed us a way to do a transform on a date field that really dramatically changed things for me. So with regard to recurring reports, and I used the daily cert count report in my video. I included all of this information in the video, so you know a lot of this you can always see this again. But so for recurring reports, you almost always, if you're gonna, especially if you're gonna do it on a monthly basis, you want to use relative dates, because otherwise you're just going to get the same report over and over again, right? So let me go back and explain why that is. So if I'm doing, for instance, a monthly circulation report, and I say, okay, it's April now, I'm running a report for my board, and I just want to know circulation for March. If I do that one time, then that's going to work. That's going to be fine. But next month, I'm going to have to come in here and run it again, and I'm going to have to change the dates. If I set this up to recur, then next month when it runs, I'm going to get the exact same data because it's running for the same days. So that's why you do relative dates. So that's the first thing. So relative dates are going to allow you to say a certain time period ago, that's what you're reporting on. Now, this report is a daily cert count. So it's going to give you every day in the span that you designate and tell you how many items have circulated at the library that you choose. So one way that you could, that this report actually would work with a relative date is, for instance, if you were really watching the circulation really closely at one branch, for instance, and you wanted to know every week what the circulation was on a daily basis, you could set this to a relative date and say 7 days ago to 1 day ago, and then set your recurrence interval down here to 1 week, right? So that's a way that would actually work. The problem is whenever you get into a time span like a month, it's a really irregular time frame because every month has a different number of days. So you can't say 31 days, you can't say 30 days ago, because every month is going to have a different time frame, and so it's not going to work. So what they showed us in the last reports interest group, and I'll just take this same report and clone it and show you guys. You can take that same date field. You're not even changing the field itself. The filter is the same, but I'm coming in here to the filter, the circulation filter, checkout date and time. And if you change your transform from date to year plus month, and then even in this case, if you're just doing 1 month, you could just change your operator as well. You don't need a date span. You just need one month. So you could just change it back to equals, which is the default, and then save it. And load. Of course, it's not going to load. Oh, goodness.
Sure, Kyle, this is really how it works.
I know. But I can show you this one because this is the one that I used for my video and it happens to still be in here. But what this does is okay, I changed it to equals and you can see it says year plus month as my transform. So whenever I change this from a real date to a relative date, now it says months ago. So I can say
whatever month you're currently in, it's going to run it for the previous.
Correct.
Nice.
So basically, if I do this and I set it up, okay, I want it to run every month, and then I change this, let's say to May 1st, because you want it to run on the 1st of every month, whoops. Then basically what it's going to do is it's taking this date format and it's just looking at this center number because that's your month, and it's going to grab one less, any circulation that has a number in that frame that is one less than wherever you are currently. So if it's June, it's going to grab May. If it's July, it's going to grab June, and so on. And that's what it's going to run the report on because it's 1 month ago. So yeah, that's a way that you could set up a monthly circulation report and just let it go. And it would just, you could set up your email in this field here, and it'll just email you on the 1st, hey, your report's ready, you can go in and look at your output. So super easy. That would be a great thing for a lot of our libraries, which is why I wanted to bring it up here, and I brought it up during the membership meeting because I think that's the way that we normally run or a lot of people run our reports, is we do it on a monthly basis so we can show our boards. Okay. Yeah, Tony, give that a shot and see what you think. If it doesn't work for you, let me know, because it has worked for me every time I've tried, and I think it's kind of a game changer, or has potential to be. The other thing that I have also added is I took all of the templates or the template guides that we've been working on, the documents, all of the ones that Josh had finished. I got those saved as PDFs, and then I finished up 10 of the circulation counts template guides, and saved those as PDFs, sent those over to Ron and Dan on our web team to have those posted to the Missouri Evergreen Library's website. So those should go up soon. It's progress. We're a ways from being done still, but it's progress toward our goal. So
I have As of today, I think all of my Circ ones are done. I would like a couple, I would like
Wow.
help with a couple of them.
Okay.
I need,
Nice.
I warned you guys from the beginning, I'm not good with common uses and I need help with that kind of stuff. I put screenshots on all of them and mostly they're finished. A couple of them I'd like some feedback on.
Okay, great. I think something that I'm wanting to work out with, and Ron and Dan both seem to think that this was going to be something that they could do with, they're using WordPress for our website. We had talked originally about using these as documentation for each of these templates and then setting that link up with our shared templates so that right there in the reporter, they can click a link and go directly to that document. There are, well, most of mine, I was going to say there are some, but most of mine, I don't have that last bit of information is, other libraries you can contact to get information about this template. The whole idea was that they could contact other libraries that use that template to get kind of more practical information or troubleshoot issues that they're having with the template. And we just haven't gotten that kind of feedback whenever we've solicited it. So I don't really have any other libraries to put on there. So they all just have, the listserv, the reports listserv on there.
I actually think that's sufficient. I mean, why not crowdsource it?
Right. Right. And my thought is, if we end up getting more of that information, what I started to say a minute ago is, hopefully we can get permalinks to those files, and then in WordPress, if we ever have to update these files, we can update it on the WordPress side and have the links in Evergreen still work. That's the hope, so that we don't have to go back in and edit things in Evergreen, because those of us who have done that know it can be problematic, because things break when you start replacing things. So yeah, we're getting some of those up there. Kate, so the ones that you need help with, do you think we can go through that today, or do you want to try to? Okay.
I think
I
so.
was gonna say, we can do that in a working meeting, or if you want to try to do it today, we can.
Well, I'm fine either way, honestly. I know that we've been waiting on these forever, so I mean,
Right.
whenever.
I think we should, if you've only got a couple and we can work through them here. Again, this is where I've learned so much about reports, is from everybody else. So this is a good thing to have other folks see this process.
Okay.
I need to make you a presenter probably for you to share.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, you should be a presenter. You should be able to share with us.
Okay. Are you seeing the correct screen?
Yep.
All right, so let's see, report codes. I am Circlists, Circ. Lists. Okay, I'm going to be going between these two because I have, so based on item barcode. Okay, so this is the only thing I have for common uses include tracking a title Circ Life. Is that sufficient? I mean,
let's see. History of transits based on item barcode. Yeah. So, and that's something that I noticed, and I'm sure you probably did too, Kate, is that the purpose section and then the understanding and using section, I think, are probably the most important parts.
Right.
A lot of the running section is pretty similar from template to template. But I think that makes sense. I'm trying to think of, I mean, I think there's probably other ways to say it, but that's really what this is for. I mean, I don't think it needs to be any more explicit than that unless somebody else has ideas for some common use.
Yeah, I mean, with all of these, circulation is not my forte. So that's why I kind of just put what people tell me to put because I believe what they say this report is for.
I mean, you can imagine though, right?
I guess.
You can imagine.
So apologies too, because some of this I did quite a few months ago and it's not fresh in my mind. So the output of this report tells you the history of each transaction of this particular barcode. Okay, so I did not go into depth. This was the first one I did. I don't know if I went into this much depth in my other ones, but I like how it's describing what everything means.
Right.
So I feel okay about this one? Question mark?
Yeah, I like it.
All right.
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Okay. All right. So this one, we're done. So
Cool.
yes. This one is not finished because let me get into Evergreen actually for this.
Okay.
Because we got, sorry again, Circuscirclist, lists. We might have talked about this already. Sorry guys, losing what I'm doing. Filtered by item status. And what did my notes say? This seems to be dependent on money being involved, yet that isn't mentioned anywhere in the title or description. And I think so the report columns, there's a whole bunch of price stuff on the output. So, I mean, again, I don't run these, so does this make sense to someone that is running it, that this description is sufficient enough, even though all of this money stuff is being output?
Let me follow along with you. And what's the title that we're working on again? I'm just looking on my screen. Yours is a little bit small.
Oh, items checked out, filtered by item status, shelf, circ mod, and patron profile.
Okay.
That's a lot.
It is. Okay. Items checked out. So this is things currently checked out. Yeah, right. Okay. Check-in date and time is null. Okay. So what we're seeing is things currently checked out with these filters. And the default pivot column is sum patron paid or system billed total. So yeah, and see, this description didn't get changed either. I think this might be one that we moved out of money.
Okay.
The way that it looks like we may have moved this one out of the money folder because that doesn't look like a title that we have edited, and it doesn't look like a description that we've edited. It doesn't look like our others. So
Right.
I wonder if this is something that we looked at later and said, this really is a circulation report, but is it?
So my question is, should we try to work on this report guide now, or knowing that, should I try to run it again and see what I understand and see?
I mean, in theory, I guess we can work on it whenever you like. But in theory, this looks like something that, the only thing that it's going to say, other than, or that it's going to show us, other than we're filtering by the checkout library, the shelving location, the circ mod, and the patrons permission group. But other than that, the only thing that's affecting the item is that it doesn't have a check-in time. So it doesn't necessarily have to have a bill associated with it. It's just not currently checked in. So
Okay. Wow,
I
that
think
makes sense
commonly,
to me.
yeah,
Putting that into,
I think commonly this would probably be used for looking at, long-term overdues or billed items or things like that. But that's not all that it would show, right? It would
right,
show things that are
right.
currently out as well.
Okay. So I'm going to, I do have other ones that I'm further along on. So we'll move on to those. And this
Okay.
one I will, come back to.
Okay, sure.
Based on number of circs. The date range is chosen, but the output simply states the year. Is this confusing?
Sounds like it's been transformed.
Sorry.
That's
so
okay.
do you want to look at
List
the
of,
report? Or?
yeah. Yeah, so list of items based on number of circulations. So we have this, okay. So what we're getting is title, author, number of circs, and checkout date and time. And we're filtering by the checkout renewal library, checkout date and time, shelving location, and then greater than a certain number of circs. This almost looks like something you could use as a weed list.
Yeah. Sorry, this go to meeting menu keeps covering up my tabs, so I have to minimize it. And then, so I have that. A common use for this report is determining the items with the most circulations in the specified time frame.
Oh, okay, right. So this is like a popularity kind of or high demand kind of list. And then you can. I remember talking about these kinds of reports a while ago. So I would guess that greater than filter is in there so that you can say, I don't want anything that is, less than, say, 10 circs in this time frame, because I'm only going to want to look at popular stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense to me. I just wonder if, because they're choosing this date, but it's giving you the whole year, I guess, on the output. Maybe should I run one real quick?
I was going to say I think all of these we have run at one point or another, right?
Yeah.
It's probably in one of our folders.
All right.
Circulations, lists. Or is this one too new? Because I think it would be in that report group folders. Yeah, go back to the previous folder. I think it would be in report group folders. Normally, it would be in there, and then you can go into circulations lists, and all of the reports that we have run will be in there.
Okay, and we're doing based on number of circs.
Yeah, and I don't see it there. So when was this one created? Yeah, this was made in July of 2019.
Okay.
So we didn't run that one. We would have to run it to see.
Well, I have one here that I ran.
Oh, okay.
Based on number of circs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So it's they transformed the display field to only show the year.
So no matter what date range you pick, they are showing you the whole year?
Well, no.
Okay.
It's just going to list the date only by the year. So your date range is valid and it
Okay.
only shows you the circs within the date range, but it just displays the date as only the year.
Okay. I feel like as long as I explain that in the report, in the report guide, I think
Yeah.
that's fine. But I do think that I should mention it.
I think even you may want to put something in there about even maybe in the purpose that it looks like this is intended to show you most popular items for a given year.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
seems like the only reason that you would even display that date without anything but the year is for that reason.
Yeah. I'll word it in a later.
Sure.
Okay. And so yeah, this output paragraph provides title and author of book, how many times circulated within the date range provided, might be helpful to sort by circs if you're trying to identify the most circed title. So, I mean, does this need fleshed out any more than that?
I think you might want to put something in there like though the date range listed on the output is only the year, the date range from the filter is still taken into consideration, something like that.
Okay.
I think that would make sense in that section of that guide.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Uh-oh. I went.
And I'm looking at it in the clone interface, and that's correct. It's just in that field transform, they are only showing the year. So if we cared enough and we thought that it was necessary, we could always change that back to a real date, but
Okay.
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. I've got some internet latency issues right now. Circlists. You
We
think
can see and hear you okay. So
okay.
hopefully.
All right.
Hopefully that's
It's
not
just
an
taking
issue.
stuff forever to open.
Oh.
All right. So that one looks okay. Okay. Due date and checkout library. My question is, there's an is deleted filter. Under what circumstances would you set that to true? I ran it both true and false and got the same results. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, this one's not finished. Apologies.
That's okay.
The screenshots aren't there. Okay, so yeah, could you answer that question?
But still, yeah, we still should probably try to answer that question. What's your title again? Circulated based on due date and checkout library. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, let's look at this.
You can see here I ran it 3
Right.
times.
Right. Circulating item is deleted. True, false, and you got the same results both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Well, I guess the question would be, depending upon the time frame and the checkout library, were there any? Well, no. Never mind. Never mind. If you ran it for only true and only false, there shouldn't be crossover. Because that's just a Boolean. It's either yes or no.
Right.
So you shouldn't get the same thing. That may be one that I'll have to try to run for our stuff and look at it and see.
I'd appreciate that, since you are the knower of all things.
It shouldn't be giving you the same thing if you have a true and then a false. That's those are the opposite of each other. I don't know if you know.
Right. Makes sense that they wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that's not at all the same.
Okay, so
I'll run that a couple times and see what I can see, and I'll get back with you on that one.
All right, and actually, that's it. So you're going to check on that one, and then I'm going to complete the one that was before that with screenshots. But other than that, mine are finished.
Cool.
Yes.
Great job.
Well, I still have collection counts to do, and I have started those. I think I've got one finished. So
still,
I'm getting there.
It's progress. I'm glad that we're moving forward on this, and I think, you know, if we can finish this up before I leave as chair, then I'll be happy. I would like to not have something carry over to the next person.
Believe me, I feel you.
Yeah, I know you do, and I feel bad every time I try to give you work, because you have another committee to deal with, and that's just not fair. So anyway, okay, let's go back to our agenda. What else do we have on our agenda? Okay, so under new business, we have a report survey item on the agenda. I just wanted to follow up with you all about something that had been mentioned in the last membership meeting. The Strategic Planning Committee had done some surveying of member libraries, non-member libraries, other consortia, things like that, and gathered a lot of data. One of the things that they learned about our members is that their satisfaction with the reporter is still pretty low, very low. And so, but unfortunately, it didn't have any qualitative responses or things like that, to where we can't really get much information about why, what specifically they are frustrated with. I mean, I think we can kind of speculate about, you know, the things that we find difficult or confusing, but if there are things that, for instance, are fairly easily remedied, that would be something that would be good to know. And it can kind of focus the efforts of this committee going forward, whether that means, okay, this is something we can train people on, or this is something that has to be done through development, et cetera. So what I have done is in the, and I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen again. We have a shared drive for the committee, and Tony, I'll have to add you. I'm going to write that note down right now. I need to add Tony to the shared drive. And actually, let me look at the members. I don't know if any of you guys are on here.
I was going to say, I don't think I have this drive.
Okay, this is fairly new, so I need to add everybody. Okay, sorry, Shannon got that set up around the time that the rest of the G Suite and YouTube accounts and all of that were set up. So this is something that you guys don't yet have access to. I will rectify that as soon as I can.
Just a tip, Kyle, I tried to en masse add all of my people, and it would not let me. I had to do it one at a time.
Okay.
When I did it one at a time, it added everybody fine, but when I tried to do everybody, it wouldn't let me.
Huh. Okay. That's good to know. But in the in the main folder, and we may need to move it to its own project folder or something like that. But we have a reports module feedback survey. So all I've done really is I've just started throwing questions in here as they occur to me. They are not organized. It may be something that's worthwhile to add sections in here so that we have, a rating section and then a qualitative response section, or have it based on, training and then a different one on running reports and a different section on something else. I don't know. However we decide to break this up is fine. But I think at this point, what I really need is some more ideas from you all about questions. So probably the thing to do, and there's a question that I did not actually fill in, so I'll delete that. So probably what I need to do is just share this with everybody. You guys can get in here and take a look at what we've already got, and then we can make suggestions maybe at our next meeting, or if we want to get this out sooner than that, maybe we can just set a deadline. What do you think? How long would you need to look at this and give me a couple ideas for new questions? Would a couple of weeks be enough?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks, please.
Okay. So let's pull up a calendar here. That would be like the 29th. Would that work? April 29th for questions for survey. And like I said, I'm not expecting 10 or 50 from each of you, just a few ideas so that we can kind of fill this out and try to cover as much as we can in one survey. If you can get people to fill out a survey at all, then it's good, but you definitely don't want to hit them with 3 or 4 of them saying, oh yeah, we forgot to ask this or we forgot to ask that. So if we can cover as much material as possible in one go, that would be great.
So this is a little off topic, but looking at my calendar, I see that's the day after we upgrade. Have you used the report server in the test server? Or have you used the reports module in the test server? I know it's essentially the same, but sometimes things act.
I've gone in and looked at it, but the funny thing about a test server, and I was going to bring this up as we were talking about training and other things to think about going forward. The reporter does not actually run reports on a test server.
Oh.
Yeah, you can create reports all you want. Let me look at, let's see, I've got this thing going. So this output here is called Clark Kent test. So there is a process on an Evergreen server called Clark Kent that actually runs reports. So I didn't know if anybody else had was aware of that, but in one of the interest group meetings, they said, yeah, Clark Kent does not run on our test server. And why is it Clark Kent? Because he's a reporter. So yeah, anyway, it's a really bad joke.
Clever.
It'll probably never be changed because yeah, anyway. But so I started this, I started it at, what is that, 1:44? And here we are almost 3 o'clock and it still hasn't finished. And this is a really, really simple report. Just trying to verify, yes, I'm on the test server, it's not gonna run. But yeah, this is the test server and it looks virtually unchanged from the current reporter. So I would have to get into the documentation and look to see if there's anything significant at all that has been changed.
I highly doubt there is, honestly,
yeah.
But
as much as everybody hates it, it doesn't seem like the reporter gets much work.
Nobody wants to touch that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Well, the other thing that I'm thinking is, don't ask me why, but I took a beginner SQL course not that long ago, and it made some things with the reporter make sense.
Really?
And or vice versa, like some of the SQL made sense because I've used the reporter. And it's like, oh, that's why it's called this, or that's why this works the way it does. but it makes me wonder, you know, so many of the people who would be normally working on the reporter already know SQL and already know how to use it because they know SQL and they're fine with it.
I think that might be half of why it's so intimidating, because people that know
Right.
reports, they talk in SQL. They, you know, they,
Yep.
they just.
Yep. Yep. And because they're the ones that are commonly using it, then, you know, and in the interest group, they say this all the time. They're just like, yeah, I just create a template for them and run it, and I just send them the output. You know, it's like, yeah, but that doesn't really help them learn it, you know, and that's not what we can do at our consortium because we don't have people who are paid to run reports for other people. It's just members. So anyway, we have to focus on either making it more user friendly or getting people trained to where they're comfortable with it, or both. So anyway, that wouldn't surprise me at all if that's a big part of why it doesn't get changed, because it all just makes perfect sense to them. Like what needs to be changed? This is fine. There's nothing wrong here. Or if it's confusing to me, I can just go into my SQL program and run a query that I don't have to worry about the reporter because I just know how to create that query.
Well, it's not common knowledge yet, but Chris Sharp is doing his whole his reports pre-conference again this year.
Good.
Yeah.
And I, as far as I know, every year that I've been able to go, or at least have been aware of the conference and looked at the list of sessions, he's always done that, and everybody loves that session, and it's really informative, and he's very good at what he does, and
He
he's
is
very
very
good at
good at what he,
explaining things.
yeah.
And
I
so,
take it every time, even though I've taken it like 3 or 4 times now. I'm always going to take it.
yep, yep. So word to the wise, anybody that is at this meeting that is contemplating going to the Evergreen conference this year, it's all online. It's much cheaper than it normally would be. So if you decide to go to the Chris Sharp session on reports. The man knows what he's doing and communicates it in a very, very approachable way. So
On our
that,
Missouri Evergreen website, in the report section, the videos that are not ours are Chris Sharp doing his reports thing.
Yep, from last year. Yep, yep. So anyway, let's see, where were we? We were on the agenda talking about, what were we talking about? Oh, the survey. So yeah, so we'll get some of those ideas, and I'll get that sent out as soon as I get ideas from the committee members, and then we can start collecting that data, and we'll have something to go off of as we hopefully are able to start development at some point in the near future. Okay. Then lastly, I have onboarding and training. One of the things that I was going to mention during this was what I just showed you guys, which is I think reports is very important to make a part of the onboarding and training sessions that we have with new member libraries, migrating libraries. I am on the team for Henry County, and I know Diane Disbrow and Ruth Lord are on the St. James migration, and Diane used to be a part of this group. I did reach out to Diane and Ruth though to see if they would prefer to have somebody from reports sit in on any of their training with the new migration or newly migrating library. We'll see how that works. The onboarding process is a little bit new. I would understand if they wanted somebody from reports to sit in on that. But yeah, that's. I intend to cover that for Henry County. If they decide that they want that for St. James, is there anybody here who could maybe cover that?
I feel like I would need guidance as to what that would entail. You know,
There's not a lot, to be honest,
yeah.
because they will already have received reports training from Equinox, and Equinox covers the vast majority of what they would need to know. What I have found with recent migrations, I have talked to people before their migrations and followed up with them after, in Neosho and Bowling Green and Brookfield. And those folks, when they, and actually Oregon County contacted me wanting to know if I could sit down with them. And really, they seem to have a fairly good grasp of running a standard template, but they just had some questions about, okay, this is the output that it gives us. How do we do X with this output? And so some of it ended up being Excel training, and some of it ended up being, okay, if you run the report, but in a slightly different way, you'll get better output for what you're wanting. But I really think that's a big part of it, is just kind of having somebody available to send an email, make a phone call before and after the migration to say, what do you need? What reports do you commonly run? And trying to match those up with templates that we have, and then troubleshooting from there.
So I'm in kind of a unique situation because we're trying not to repeat migration team members. And I know I will be called on to be a cataloging migration person, probably the next one. So, and I'll be honest, I don't know how comfortable I am doing cataloging. That I'm comfortable with. Reports, I'm not. So if no one else can do it, I will, but I would prefer not to. When I do my cataloging, when I'm on the migration team for cataloging, maybe by that time I would feel comfortable doing reports then as well, and I could be both.
Right. Okay. All right.
But I don't,
Like I said,
I don't
I
want
think,
you to have to do it either. Again,
well, here's the thing, that, St. James is probably going to have only a couple of reports that they're going to need. They're a fairly small library, and it's probably not going to be a really complicated process to get them the reports that they need. And if we can do that, if we can help them get established, Oregon County, they contacted me, and they were, I could tell that they kept asking me to pause, and I could tell they were kind of taking a lot of notes and writing things down and everything. And I said, is there anything that you need as far as documentation or whatever? They said, well, we're going to create a guide of everything that you're telling us to do so we can give it to our branches, so that they can run these reports. And I said, well, you can run these reports for everybody, because they had the director, and then one other person was kind of their designated reports person. And apparently nobody had covered that. Nobody had told them that they can run reports for all of their branches, and it, is not something that they need to have somebody physically in a branch to run a report about the collection in that branch. And once I said that, they were like, oh, well, we don't need to take any notes then, because what you told, or any more than what we need basically to understand it, because we now get it because of what you've shown us, and we're just going to do this for our other branches. Which, if you can do that, and again, in a smaller district, well, even in a larger district, I mean, we run reports here at Trails with just a couple of us doing it. We don't have our branches run their own reports. That seems like an unnecessary torturous process for them to have to learn how to use the reporter, when Nate and I both know how to use it pretty well. So, and I would say most libraries are probably that way. You focus on one or two people, getting them to be able to use it and move on. So, just little things like that are the things that I've been running into with following up with libraries after the fact and saying, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you're getting all the statistics that you need? Is there anything you need help with? And Oregon was trying to do like weeding reports, and and those are kind of tricky for anybody. They take forever to run. Anyway, they were confused and worried that they were doing something wrong, and just a quick phone call resolved that. So usually it's not a huge time commitment. And so, as far as helping a migrating library, I commonly don't talk about that much, other than, our report output retention policy. I talk about that because I don't want anybody to be surprised that their output's going away. And I talk to them about cloning templates rather than just running them directly out of the shared folders. That is really about it. And then we just talk about whatever they need. Then I just say, hey, what reports do you use now? What do you report to your board every month? And I'll give you some templates that you can use. And it's pretty informal at this point. Yeah, so. All right, well, if I don't get a volunteer from anybody else, then I will, I may be back in touch with you, Kate,
Okay.
or it may be
Please
something
do.
that, if necessary, maybe, I'll take the pre-call or the follow-up call, and you can take the other one that I don't do or whatever.
Sure, we can tag team it.
Yep, exactly. So that way nobody's stuck with all of it. That works for me. The only other thing that I wanted to mention that is actually not on the agenda here, but I need to mention it, is that we're also doing a lot more demos now because we don't have a lot of our migrations filled out for the next year or so. We have a lot of interest, and so we're trying to get these demos done so that people are aware of what Missouri Evergreen is like. But usually that includes somebody from circulation, somebody from cataloging, and then I've been doing the reports section for those demos. Again, Equinox goes over the reporter module in very general terms, and about the only thing that I go over, if I even have time. Sometimes it's weird. They've scheduled these demos from anywhere from like 2 4-hour sessions to 1 2-hour session. I mean, it's just like 8 hours and then you have 2 hours. It's like, how are we going to cover everything? So I don't know why. Maybe it's at the behest of the library. Maybe they're saying we only have this amount of time to devote to this demo. But it's been kind of weird. So like the last time, I didn't have any time to talk at all. So it's just like, well, whatever Equinox tells you about reporting is kind of what you get. And then if they ask questions, I'm going to answer those. But again, I cover kind of the same stuff. I talk about cloning things, and I talk about our output retention policy, and that's about it. I don't really cover a whole lot else. I try to give the cataloging and circulation folks plenty of time, and I go last anyway, so that's fine, because there's other things that are way more important for a potentially migrating library to know. The report stuff, we can figure that out later.
Do you usually stay for the whole thing? Do you go to the whole thing? Sorry, I'm doing my first one next week because I've been lucky enough to have other people do it before this.
Right. But if you can get them to nail down a time that your section is going to be, then yeah, you can skip the rest of it. What has happened the last couple of times is they'll tell you the full span, and then just say, okay, here's the agenda, and when they go from item to item is just when they get to it. But is that Reynolds County?
Yeah.
And you're doing that for cataloging?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that I saw that you said that you were going to that one. I can't make that one. So I did tell Shannon that, if they needed somebody to answer questions after the fact, then I would be around, and I could, follow up with emails or phone calls or whatever they needed. But I would touch base with the members of the committee to see if anybody else could cover.
Reports is right after cataloging, so I'll tell Shannon that I will be the reports liaison, even though
Well, and again, Kate, the only things that commonly that I do is if they ask questions, I answer them. Other than that, Equinox covers the reporter. So okay. I don't try to jump in there. Again, I'm trying to give everybody else as much time as possible to talk about their stuff. And sometimes they'll hold their questions till the end. So I try to, kind of get in and get out, and then we'll get to the questions because, again, cataloging and circ, as difficult as the reporter is to use, there's a lot more to cataloging and circ, and it's something you want to get right up front, whereas reports you can usually figure out after the fact. So anyway, it's all of that is to say there's not a lot to discuss with these demos. They just want somebody there. And again, if they ask something that you don't know the answer to, I'm fine following up with them later and answering questions if I know the answer. So that would be great if you could cover that. That would be awesome. And then I will do my best to cover the next one. And it sounds like
Okay.
we're going to have more and more of these. The strategic planning committee identified, I think they said 15 people that wanted demos, or
Yep.
15 people, 15 libraries that that want demos that they're interested in joining. So that's a blessing and a curse. It's a lot of work, but it's great to have new members potentially lining up. That's great. Okay, well, I think that is everything that I have on the agenda. The next meeting will be a working meeting, assuming that we have more guides to work on and get things settled. That will be on May 13th at 2 p.m. as long as nobody, as of right now, has any conflicts that they know of. Looks like we are not, yeah, because the membership meetings are only every other month, so we're not on the same day as a membership meeting this time.
All right.
So does that work for you? Lori says okay. Does that
Yep.
work for you, Kate? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then that will be, unless anybody tells me that that's an issue between now and next month, it will be on the 13th at 2 p.m. and it'll be a working meeting. So bring any projects that you're working on. Lori, if you still got some, I know I'll have some templates to work on between now and then. So yeah, bring what you're working on. If you need feedback or want somebody to take a look at it, we can do that at the next meeting. And Tony, I may get with you outside of the meeting to talk about if there are things that you're open to helping out with. I may try to get you some templates to work on as well. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for coming, and I think that is a meeting. So
Thanks, Kyle. Great as always.
I don't know about that, but let's see. I think I just have to hit record again and have it stop.